surrender the license of. Rule 223.13, surrender of license. The E section says, if this surrender is accepted by the executive director, the licensee is no longer licensed, effective on the beginning date of surrender, and except for permanent surrenders until such person applies for and meets the requirements of a new license. And if it's term surrender, our rule and policy has always been you start over, because you gave up the license you had before, you start over as a new licensee if you qualify. This is the procedure that we took with Mr. Ramirez, which would require him to start fresh, go back to an academy. He is asking for a waiver to not have to go back through an academy. And we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, and it was your preference to defer to this meeting and address it at this meeting. So that's what I bring before you now.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. My name is Juan Ramirez. Thank you for your time and consideration on this agenda item. I know last time I spoke and I gave certain details. I know there was a lot of circumstances, extenuating circumstances on why I brought this to the board. My attorney at the time, I know he was big, and I know I weighed on Commissioner Burrows a lot. So he is present, and he is going to help me articulate a little bit better on any questions that you might have. And if you may, Mr. Castillo.
Sir, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For purposes of the record, my name is Eduardo A. Castillo, and I also go by Edward Castillo. And I'm here before you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of item number 5 of today's agenda, specifically for Mr. Juan Ramirez. And I was counsel for Mr. Ramirez back in 2000, I think it was 15, and I wanted to avail myself to assist you in any way, if I could, and answer any questions as to what transpired in the judicial proceedings there in Webb County. I can tell you briefly that, Mr. Vickers read the rule and what have you, but the intent, anyway, of the agreement at that time with the district attorney's office, which the judge approved, was turning it in and getting it back. Unfortunately, and I as an attorney know that ignorance of the law is no excuse. But that all I could do at this point is explain to you all that was the intent of all parties involved, of the district attorney's office, of my client, of myself, and the judge. And I mentioned the intent because in the same rule that Mr. Vickers cited, I started questioning the legislative intent of this rule, because I thought to myself, as an analogy, well, as an attorney, if I got arrested and, would I have to go back to first year law school again? I'm fortunate enough to say I don't know the answer to that question, because I've never flirted or been anywhere close. But I started questioning the legislative intent of this, and deeper into that rule, specifically 223.13, in letter D, the legislature, I submit very respectfully, recognizes that it may be a case-by-case situation, specifically because they do put in there that, quote unquote, it shall be liberally construed the intent of any request. So, with the legislature allowing the director and the commission to liberally construe the intent, I am here before you, ladies and gentlemen, and explaining to you as an officer of our court system that the intent was to turn in, and get back. That was the intent at that time. Having served on various boards myself, I've had the honor and pleasure. I think the last one was City Council there in Laredo in Webb County, and I was in planning and zoning. And when I was on the board, I was always concerned whether I'm going to set a precedent, and with a certain item in front of me. And I started thinking, here, if I'm on your end am I going to set a precedent with this? So I started trying to play devil's advocate with this issue. And number one, because the legislature, I revert back to the liberally construe, because the legislature gives you that opportunity, I don't think so. But if I wanted to entertain that position even more, I think this specific situation would set a very high precedent with these very specific factors. In addition to what I also noticed, there was some documents that I noticed that I guess were supplemented after the director's decision or the commission's decision. But my understanding also is not only is his former employer supporting my client's request, which is Sheriff Martin Cuellar there in Webb County, but also the academy from which Mr. Ramirez, attended, is also supporting this request. So I will gladly avail myself to any questions. I came here more in the capacity of explaining to you all that I was his counsel back when this thing was going on. I would request that the commission very respectfully consider waiving, because even if the commission sets a precedent, I think with these specific circumstances, any precedent that you may be setting would be very high and very specific. Specifically, that the employer and also the academy is, and I saw his curriculum vitae, and he's, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but nevertheless, it's my understanding is that that they are also in support of Mr. Ramirez's request. If you have any questions, I'll avail myself at this time.
So I think for me, I need some understanding. So
Yes, sir.
On the section that you're talking about, are you talking about the occupations code? Is that what you're reading?
I apologize if I just shortened it. I was going with the same code that Mr. Vickers, I believe, read out. Specifically for the record, it's 37 Administrative Code 22313. Sorry about that.
I just need to make sure.
Sure, absolutely. Because Texas has more than one code.
But when you said legislative intent, I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't think that part.
I apologize. I apologize.
And the original charge for which the license was agreed to be permanently surrendered.
Yes, sir.
For the time
Yes, sir.
was what?
The original charge, Commissioner Hester, was insurance fraud, and it was based on my client had returned from out of town, and he came home, and one of his two vehicles, I think, was gone. He makes a call, and this was why we were adamant. I think I submitted a letter to the commission that from day one I knew that I was not going to allow my client to plead anything but not guilty, because we already knew by that time that even the insurance company themselves were already, and they were already saying, well, we're not going to pursue this, and later on in discovery, that representation was in fact confirmed. But yeah, that long story short, Commissioner, that's where it was based on. And that's how we ended up, not having to plead guilty. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if the insurance company didn't pursue this,
Yes, sir.
why were the charges brought?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. Not because I don't want to. I think that would be more of a question with for the investigator. I came in. I didn't assist pre-indictment. I came on after indictment, but nevertheless, my understanding is the insurance company, and that's why let's just go to a jury trial. There's no, how are you going to have a victim, and how are you? But they were on board. They were saying no. Because the vehicle was 2 days later was recovered, and it turns out it was one of his employees, and the insurance company was explaining to us anyway that, hey, we're not going to proceed with this. So I don't know I don't know how to specifically answer to that. That was my question back in 14, 15. What are we doing here? you know, and that's why we just, well, if the only way to get this resolved is go to a jury trial, that's why we were just, you know, gung-ho about it. And I mean, we didn't want it, but I was not going to allow my client to plead guilty. But yes, it was 2 days later, it was recovered, and the insurance company was not on board to proceed. Their investigation, because they have their own investigations, fraud and theft and what have you, they were not going to proceed with this. So why? I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't know the question to that answer, and I don't want to mislead the commissioner or yourself, sir.
Commissioner, just for your information, on the permanent surrender of license form, it says that he was charged by indictment with insurance fraud, state jail felony, are charged by indictment, insurance, state jail felony, and false report to an officer or law enforcement. So the false report is, I guess, calling it in, from what I remember, calling into the El Laredo Police Department saying that his vehicle was stolen. And then it turns out 2 days later that one of his employees had it, and that's where the other charge. So I apologize for that. But yes, those are the two charges.
So if the commission will recall, this was in our packet, the last meeting we had in June, in Austin. We were then presented with paper on that day with packets, and there was a lot of supplemental information that we didn't have to review prior to the meeting. So, given the volume of information that was in there, and it looked like there were some things that were worthy of review, we went ahead and tabled it to this time. Unfortunately, I'm seeing not all of that supplemental information is in our packet for this meeting to kind of remind everyone where we left off. But I saw John had, Mr. Beecham had the green card and all these things in his file. So just to be sure everyone remembers everything clearly, I'm going to ask Mr. Beecham to kind of give us a rundown of kind of the history of the case and how we got to where we are, because it's a little thin in our packet
Sure.
for August.
And the information is basically, the executive director's given the basic rundown, but I'm gonna give you the basic timeline, is, because we've had a lot of details about this case, is after the plea agreement was made, to the commission was submitted, on a permanent surrender form, a term surrender of 18 months. We received it, the executive director, and that's the reference to the green card here in all letters. Anytime we as a staff receive a term or a permanent surrender from a licensee, we're going to review it with the executive director, and as referenced earlier, Rule 223.13D, the executive director may liberally construe the intent of any request. That's in commission rules, the ones you the commissioners have passed and either re-adopted over the years. Excuse me. In this case, the executive director liberally construed, reviewed, accepted the term surrender. As we stated earlier, anytime a licensee surrenders their license, they're unlicensed for any and all purposes. Meaning, if they decide in a permanent surrender, obviously they can never come back and be licensed again. It says it on the form, and it says it on the acceptance letter which we sent. For a term surrender is a different story. Assuming that the criminal offense, which in this case there is no criminal offense, an adjudication or probation or anything like that would have later disqualified this particular applicant, free to come back to the academy, free to come back and get licensed after the term surrender is over. That's the position we're in this case. And just to reiterate, this term surrender, the term surrender is over, and the applicant is requesting to waive the requirement to become licensed again, or waive the requirement of the basic licensing course. That's the question before the commission today. And in all other circumstances, a licensee coming back off a term surrender will have to re-enter and go through the basic licensing course. Again, that's the waiver requirement before you today. There's no other impediments to licensure. Anytime the licensee wants, or the potential licensee wants to come back, can enter the basic peace officer, basic jailer course, whatever the case is, and attend, assuming all their requirements are met. That's procedurally the background which we have. And I'll note, in reference to Commissioner Burris's note of the green card, this is the letter that we send out in response to when the executive director receives a permanent surrender or decides to accept a permanent or a term surrender. And I'm going to give you the relevant language here. Effective October 29th, 2014, you're no longer licensed by TCOLE and will remain unlicensed until you apply and meet the requirements of a new licensee. This is sent out by me. It was sent out on February 11th, 2015. It was signed by Mr. Ramirez in March of 2015. So we had the first process, the term surrender itself, and then the follow-up letter saying you are no longer licensed and you will remain unlicensed until you meet the requirements, of a new licensee. Again, that's where we are today. He's free to enter any academy. And again, the question before you all is asking you to waive the requirement of a basic license academy to retain his license back.
Very respectfully, if I may interject, that everything seems accurate. The only thing that I want to just clarify, only because it was a choice or the use of the word that caught my attention, that a plea agreement. Very respectfully, I would submit that it wasn't necessarily a plea agreement, only because we never pled guilty, and we never pled no contest, or my client never pled. That's about the only correction I have. I don't think it's material to the issue or the substance. I didn't want to take away from that, but that would be the only, because this is a forum with record and what have you, that would be the only correction that I would respectfully submit.
I'm not sure if they have the updated, the one from the academy, the recommendation from the academy that I should
Having
adopt.
had a month plus to review everything, and we did, again, have some of this, some of this discussion last time. Ultimately, this has been, historically, this has been what we've done. Mr. Ramirez is not prohibited from going back to get take the necessary coursework to get his license. He's not precluded from getting his license. I certainly, and I think last time I made note and said, it's tough as an attorney to come back and write, oops, I think I overlooked something really important. And unfortunately, as you stated, Mr. Castillo, ignorance of the law is no
Absolutely,
excuse.
absolutely.
And, we're humans, we make mistakes, even when we try our best as attorneys, but there is nothing to preclude your client prior to engaging you from writing, emailing, calling the commission, just to verify that what was happening was correct. I mean, we have the attorney on staff for you to speak with very candidly about how the process might impact your client, and I don't know if you were retained in that capacity as well, because it's kind of going beyond the scope of the criminal case. And again, being an attorney, I recognize if I'm not paid for something that's a civil matter rather than a criminal, or vice versa, I may not necessarily be taking those steps, and there's a timing issue. So,
And liability issue. And absolutely,
all of those
absolutely.
things.
Yes, ma'am.
So I absolutely recognize that, and that was kind of what I made note of in the last commission meeting. Unfortunately, at the end, from my perspective, I don't want to start opening the door for this happening with every case we have going forward, particularly when there was an opportunity to get it right the first time. At the end of the day, while we again received very late material, and I don't know if the commission decided to include it in their thought process or not, but we were option in June to go ahead and table something for receiving information late. And then once again, we're getting presented with things 1 to 2 days before, and that's inappropriate. And for me, that reinforces that fear of, if we start doing this, this is what happens. And for me, it's been proven immediately with the same case. So, again, Mr. Ramirez is not prohibited from going back, and he does not have a criminal conviction. I recognize it's a long, arduous process, and it's difficult to balance financially and with family obligations to go back to an academy to get your license again. But ultimately, you're asking us to make that exception for you in this case because you have such great support. And despite having that great support, I can't differentiate that from all the other cases where people don't have council members and legislators and a whole lot of people behind them to do it. So it's not a precedent, as you stated earlier.
Sure.
For me, it's not a precedent that I want to make.
Sure. No, I did my best, Commissioner Burrows, to, like in any case that I have, I want to see it from the judge's perspective. I want to see it from the jury's perspective. And when he invited me recently, I was doing my best to try anyway. I've never had the pleasure of being before you all, but I wanted to do my best to try to look at it from the other side, and having a little bit of experience anyway with a couple of boards, that was one of the things that I thought was precedent. I mean, that's it's not anything that we need to at least me or Mr. Ramirez wanted to shy away from. But I guess essentially what the reason he invited me here was more transparency, and if the timing of the documents that he submitted were not, or were late or what have you, I don't think obviously that was on his behalf. I guess he's, but I guess what I'm saying is that, I think while they were late or not timely, I do think that, I admire his passion. He's pursuing this. Going through all this, but at the end of the day, that was just our request, that because I tried my best to put myself in this. I'm glad I don't know the answer, as an attorney, if I had to, do first year law school again. And that's where I was trying my best to talk to my state rep for my area. I couldn't, only because I wanted to really get in even deeper to the legislative intent of this thing. And the only thing that, having not been able to communicate with them, the only thing that I found was the liberal, the language that it can be liberally construed. But I understand everything that you're saying, and I don't disagree with it, but I do believe that, respectfully, that this has a different set of circumstances that would hopefully allow you all to reconsider. Yes, sir.
I agree with what Commissioner Burr says. Timing of the information is not the key here. I think the job was done right on the criminal proceeding, because had one thing changed, it would not only had permanently surrendered, but he would be ineligible to come back. So that part was probably done correctly in that aspect. The issue here is the time is over with. You're not barred from licensure. Personally, I agree with what Commissioner Burr said. It is not legislative intent. It is the intent of the commission that you got your second chance after getting the felony taken care of, but in order to come back, you got to go back through. And that's what it is.
Yes, sir.
I don't have anything else.
I do not.
Mr. Ramirez is just asking for one last word, if the commission would allow.
Thank you, and I want to thank Mr. Castillo for coming to give his side of the story as well. And I apologize for the information being late. And the only reason that I did continue to submit information during this process is because of that same reason, that I feel that that I don't want to set a bad precedent. and I do worry about anybody else coming before the board. But if anything, I think I'm trying to set a high precedent and a good precedent by having these people give their recommendations. These people helped me along the way to become a peace officer, and since then they've continued to be friends. I've continued to assist them in anything I can, and that's why they go to bat for me. The academy itself is saying, it might hinder positions, as if it was up to me, he doesn't need to go to the basic academy. I'm not saying that it's invaluable, and I'm here before the commission to say anything that needs to be done as far as courses, as far as supplemental courses. I am more than willing to take more voluntary hours. Anything that the commission sees fit to balance that out. Unfortunately, the basic academy, financially, I can't do it because of the time and because of the family issues. I am a single father with two boys, but I think I have tried to set a high precedent by these people that continue to support me in my decision. So it's not just not letting down the commission, it's not letting down them, it's not letting down my city and my county. And for that reason, for that honor that was taken away from me wrongly, and that I've always said that from the beginning, is why I'm still here fighting for it, to get it back, to be able to continue to serve. Since then, I've been in the private sector and in small companies, and I have been successful, but it's a different feeling when you come home with the self-gratifying feeling of being productive and being part of the community. So I just come before you. Humbly, I ask any other kind of courses, supplemental courses, extra classes. The Academy is more than willing to support me on this as well, in anything they have to do to become a peace officer again. I am more than willing, and more than willing to show this commission and everybody that has continued to support me along the way that I will not fail them. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? On this agenda item, we have the option of making a motion. We have the option of not making a motion, which means you would not be granted an exception. So at this point in time, I ask if there is a motion from any of the commissioners. Sir, we very much appreciate you coming before the commission. We appreciate you taking the time. Unfortunately, today you will not be granted an exception for not attending the academy. You still have that option. And speaking for the commission, I hope that personally that it works out for you to be able to find a way to attend the academy and to continue your service to the citizens of Texas. But thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we be excused? Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
We will move back to agenda item number 3, which is
trying to fill. We have been able to fill a couple of those positions just recently, but we will still have some openings for a while. We have 2 coming open, and I want to make those public. Again, we have talked about them, but it's very seldom. It's a very popular position that we have field agent positions open because the people that do that job love that job. I started out at that job, and I loved it when I was doing it. And so they don't go anywhere very often. But as you know, Doug Stout retired from the Houston area. We have recently filled that position. And I will introduce that new field agent to you in a moment. Tom Bickers is leaving us. He has the North Texas east side of the Metroplex position. He's leaving August 31st, and we will post that position soon to be filling his role. Kerry McKinney, the East Texas, long-standing East Texas field service agent that everybody out there loves, ran for county judge and was elected. And so he will be leaving us and assume that new role on January 1. We expect him to leave sometime in December. And so we're putting the word out now so people can be thinking about it, but that application process will open up in December. Both of these field agents have been with us for several years. They do an amazing job, and we're going to miss them. I want to introduce you to the newest field agent, and then I'll be done. Patrick Aitchison is the real Region 4 agent. He is a Victoria native, started his law enforcement career with the Victoria Police Department in 1986. Almost as old as I am, so he's been around for a while. Nobody's quite as old as I am, but he's been around for quite a while. He's had a varied career serving in patrol, investigations, and also as the department's training coordinator. He also worked at the Victoria County Sheriff's Office and retired from there as an administrative captain. He taught as an adjunct instructor at the Victoria College Police Academy for 17 years and has taught not only law enforcement classes but corrections classes as well. So he brings courses as well. He brings a wealth of experience. He's a family man, has 2 grown sons, a daughter-in-law, and a 6-year-old granddaughter. He and his wife, Michelle, have been married for 40 years. So very stable gentleman, and I think is going to do great things for us. He's excited. We're excited. So he is our new field agent. And the last thing I have for anybody attending, any officers attending the meeting today, just a reminder that if you be sure you sign in, you can get training credit for being here today and going through the meeting with us. And so I want to make sure that they understand that and get that done, and they can get credit for being here. And with that, I will open up to any questions that you may have, and that will be the end of my report.
I think we've addressed all of those. Brett Batchelor got up and spoke on their behalf in Dallas, and so I think we've ironed out most of that relationship. And so I think you'll find that we are engaged with them.
Thank you for the information, and thank you to staff and everyone for speaking tonight.
Colin, I just want to reemphasize that for the basic telecommunicator course, we're starting September 1, we have the cardiac portion in it. But the minimum hours have not increased. There's still minimum of 80. It's not a minimum of 84, 88, just a minimum of 80 hours.
That is correct. We did not change the minimum number of hours for the basic telecommunicator course.
Okay. I've had some folks say things asking me about it, and I wasn't aware of any kind of an increase in the hours at this point. So,
No, ma'am, you're correct.
thank you.
And for the audience, let me clarify a point that you made, because we always welcome participation on a variety of different committees that are looking at or assisting with curriculum and other needs. So please, if you have an interest or you have an expert in a certain area and you would like to have a voice, you are welcome to contact Education Services and make that known, and we would be happy to and appreciative.
which gives them more reports and a recent activity menu item where they can see, they have more insight to what's going on with the form submissions. There are about 73 agencies out there currently that do not have any users on TCOLEs. So we are going to be proactively reaching out to those agencies to get them access to TCOLEs. Most of those, the large majority of them, are less than five-man agencies. Also, back in November, we did a survey of all TCOLEs users. We got over 500 responses to that survey, and what came of that survey was that most users, meaning 75 to 80%, want better phone support. It's specifically more availability and better quality. We also learned from that survey that most users, meaning more than 90%, want more training for TCLEDs. And so that survey did tell us more about how people feel about the look and feel and other features within TCLEDs, but we will be addressing those long term, but immediately we have identified the support and the training as things that we can begin to implement now. So one of the things that we will be doing is populating the help menu item that's in TCLEDs that currently has nothing in it. We will be putting items in there. We are going to host a TCLEDs training webinar, kind of like we did for the Secure Share application, where we record it and make it available later if you can't make it to the live event. And then we're also holding a few breakout sessions at this year's conference that are training for TCLEDs users. Speaking of the conference, again, that conference is in Corpus Christi, October 24th through the 27th. And we currently have 689 users, attendees registered for the conference, and all but 4 vendor tables are already filled. There's 66 tables. So.
That's great.
If I may, Commissioners, I want to jump in on one thing on the TCLEDs issue. Those of you that have been around with TCOLE for a while might remember in 2000, or if you may not, but remember that 2009, the last time we were sunsetted, our last full sunset, one thing that they passed in that next legislative session was that TCOLE would only accept digital documents. They wanted us to go completely paperless. We have not ever been able to fulfill that law because we could not force people to use TCLEDs, and there wasn't another system in place that fulfilled that whole need. We couldn't force them to get TCLEDs because it was a private company, and we couldn't force them to go out and pay money on a private company. Now that the state owns it, and now that we have it and it's free, it is our intent to make it mandatory that everything you submit, an agency submits to us, will come through TCLEDs. And I've asked Jessica to come up with a plan, a transition plan, and which is, she alluded to with some of the numbers, is the beginning of that plan on how we reach out and ensure that those that don't have it understand that they're going to have to use it, and help them get to that point. But it will be, and we're looking at like a 6-month time frame maybe to before that really kicks in and the mandatory is there. But we have that plan in place. We're working through that plan on trying to get everybody on that, but it will be required that they submit everything to us through TCLEDs. That will be a little bit problematic with a handful of small agencies, especially out in far west Texas, that don't have a lot of resources for electronic stuff, someone like even computers and stuff like that. But we're going to help work through that with them and provide the customer service to help them get to that point. But I wanted you to be aware that I don't think it'll be a contentious point, but we have to go that way. I mean, we're trying to fulfill the law that's been in the book since 2011, and we need to we need to move in that direction. So we're making those moves. I wanted to let you know that.
Great job by your staff. Your key performance indicators, everything that we have on here is really good information. At least I can't speak for the rest of the commissioners, but for me, I like to be able to see where things are and the goals that you guys have set. So thank you very much. And Director, also for you and the staff, the communication going out of the different things. I think you guys are hitting at a pretty good level, right? It's not overburdening all the licensees, but it's timely and accurate information. And so, thank you very much for that. I know that's been a goal as part of the strategic plan and those things. So, thank you very much for all the work that you've done on that.
Yes, and I can't speak for any of the other commissioners, but I know I personally have received an abundance of feedback from folks, and they are very excited about the amount of information that's coming out and very appreciative of that. So I think it's, yes, we're going in the right direction. You guys are doing a fantastic job.
Well, in addition to that, it's the information that we're getting as well.
Yes.
So one, as we said in our strategic plan, one side was getting it out to the public, to our licensees, and the other was to the commission, so we can be abreast of all the issues. And it's been a great improvement, and I think we're all understanding now where the amount of information we want to have. So, and again, I like the graphical representation of things. It's easy to read, and like we said in all of our strategic planning, it also includes historical information, and so that's really helpful for us. So thanks for putting that together.
As I said yesterday, you're gonna love this guy.
The one comment I want to say on the secure share, and I noticed you guys were looking at going down the D-bits.
Yes.
Sure. Be careful. You might want to talk to some other folks that utilize that solution. It can long-term be rather expensive.
Yes, this is not one of the DIR shared services. This will be a solicitation to vendors through the DIR cooperative contracts, and it will be a full vetting of bids that come in.
Thank you for all the work. Appreciate it.
And we will go to our enforcement report, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm excited by both the opportunity and the challenges that come with this job. I think part of the reason that I'm here is all the conversations that I had with Jessica before about the exact things that you brought up. Is I used the format of the numbers that we had gathered for the last few meetings, but I'm looking for more in numbers that have meaning and what you can tell from those. So certainly our primary goal is in our individual investigations, do we investigate fairly and do we resolve it appropriately, and how do we handle those cases? But I expect more in that we identify trends or systemic problems that we as an agency can address, or more importantly, do we have information in front of us that we can give to these employing agencies that they can act on to prevent the same problem from happening again? So if we have to discipline an officer, can we avoid this problem in the future, and how can we do that? And I think that you'll see in the changes in the way we break down numbers and then the things that we look for behind them, that's going to be an ongoing goal. We're already looking at non-compliance. Obviously, that's a huge event for us every couple of years, but the number of officers that receive discipline from that is pretty shocking compared to everything else. And so what can we do proactively to avoid that? And for example, one of the things that we've already talked about is identifying those who have 2 prior reprimands. That officers lose their license over training non-compliance is a shame, and are there steps that we can take to avoid that? So that will be the goal in the future, is breaking down these numbers so they have a little more meaning, but also looking at what's behind those, and is there something that we could change either in a policy or a system that would prevent the same thing from occurring again.
Any other questions?
No, I'll just say we're looking forward to seeing what you come up with, TJ. A lot of, again, strategic planning discussion was kind of, one, we don't want to ask for data or information just for the sake of doing it. We want it to have meaning and be something that's actionable with it. So another part of the discussion was we kind of don't know what we don't know as well. And so with the capabilities we have with our IT development now, it really makes a difference as well, because to figure out these things, doing it with analog information or manual pulls, that just doesn't work for the volume that we have. So we're really excited about what the information we can pull, what we can do with it and how we can take action. And so I think you're the right guy for the job.
And a big part of that too, though, is opening up TCOLEs.
Absolutely.
And that, I think with the agency this size and so many people who have worked in different positions and they know the process from start to finish, it's exciting to see that everyone can identify some of the same problems. And now we have the opportunity to gather some of that where we can see it in a statistical format, and it's not just one story or one instance, that we can see how that applies
Right.
across the board.
Right, because anecdotal information that doesn't work either. I mean, is it actually provable? Because sometimes you think, well, everyone is telling me X, and then you go and you pull the data, and that's not really true. It's just you happen to hear those incidences. So, yeah.
Yes. And we will move on to Director Grigsby, who is already quite busy.
Good morning, Commissioners. It has indeed been a very, very busy summer. Since our last commission meeting, of course, the day following that, we had our Achievement Award ceremony held in the House of Representatives chamber. It was, I think, safe to call a very successful event. We got an opportunity to honor some of Texas's finest, and it was a great venue to do so. So thank you for those of you who are able to attend. I hope you'll be able to the next time as well. And I also wanted to put in a plug for nominations for those achievement awards. Of course, we recognize valor, public service, and professional achievement. So for anybody who is watching or listening, please help us be aware of those fine instances that we can honor for next year.
I'm going to make a comment about that, and this is one of the plugs I do often, but I think sometimes there's a misnomer, not only within agencies, but with the TCOLE awards, and while the chief administrator has to bless that, a nomination doesn't have to start or begin with a sheriff or a constable or a chief. It can begin with any of you. And we have an incredible amount of great work that's being done by the women and men across this state that serve in a law enforcement role, and please, let's not shortchange them by not taking the time or not making the effort to recognize them. We all have an obligation and a duty to do that. So please have that in your calendars. I would ask that you go back and put it in, and before long we will be accepting nominations again. So.
Absolutely. So, of course, we have been continuing with our limited scope sunset review. We've been obviously providing lots of information to them and holding meetings so that they can get a continued better understanding of our agency and how far we've come since the full review that we had leading up to last session. I know they're listening right now, and we've had a great opportunity to work with the same team that we had for the last full review. And they are, as I got word of yesterday, deep in the writing of the report that will be issued in September. So we will look forward to reading that as it comes out. Obviously, the budget is a big discussion for any state agency, and TCOLE is no exception. I wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Hood, Commissioner Hester, Commissioner Griffiths, and Commissioner Lascano for your work on the exceptional items subcommittee. Having your input has been invaluable as we put together our legislative appropriations request. I will point out that, as with most state agencies, part of our request will be for staff salaries for commissioned and non-commissioned personnel. We have had some positive news from the comptroller on the state budget outlook, and when he was before the House Appropriations Committee last month, the committee asked him what some of the recommendations would be that the comptroller would recommend for how they could spend the money that they have. And his response was making sure that we have good qualified employees and can retain them, because you have to have a healthy state government to operate. So certainly that will be supportive of many agencies' requests and ours as well. So again, as we get that process going, I will be in touch with several of you to work with legislators and get some support for our exceptional item requests. School safety, of course, has been a very, very large topic of discussion in the legislative and media realms. There were 2 hearings back in June with the Senate Committee to Protect All Texans, where we discussed current school-based law enforcement and school marshal requirements, and then a joint hearing of the House Committee on Homeland Security and Public Safety and the House Select Committee on Youth Health and Safety, where we talked about school safety options, including current training requirements for peace officers and alert training equivalency. We also last month had a school safety showcase. I wanted to give a special thanks to Commissioner Atkins for her participation in that, which was critical. I think it went off very well, and we have sent around a lot of the media coverage that we got from that. We had about 15 to 20 media outlets participate in that, and some great coverage came out of it. And then we had about 25 legislative staffers that came to see and have a discussion about that day as well. So thank you also to Commissioners Hood and Hester for being able to come to that. I hope you found it interesting and maybe got some special insight into the school marshal and school-based law enforcement programs. Additionally, we have also, I wanted to point out the TCOLE's purchase and how big of an impact that really is going to have on our agency and our discussions in the legislature. And to give just a 2-second background, if you will, going into last session, we were looking at an exceptional item to purchase a brand new system based on the sunset findings that the current structure maybe wasn't the most optimal for anybody involved. And I have to give Jessica personally a tremendous amount of credit because this whole concept was her idea. We were looking at different options, and we came back to the office one day, and she sat down and said, what if we purchased TCOLEs? And here we are today, and I think that's going to be a very exciting time, give us a lot of opportunities to use it and make it a really workable system for TCOLE staff and for our licensees. That is the final remarks that I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions? And we will get our Finance Director, Brian Roth, will be providing his report.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have in your packet the normal financial report, including expenditures and revenue. So far this fiscal year, in the HR area, we've hired 20 new employees, which is quite a lot for TCOLE. And 4 of those have been hired since the last commission meeting. In financial operations, we are 46% complete with the school marshal grant, and we have completed almost all activities related to the curriculum grant. We have trained new agency staff, worked on the financial aspects of My TCOLE online payment processing. We have also performed Grant Hub and other financial reporting. We're currently working on, as Gretchen mentioned, the sunset process, the LAR, secure share application purchase, the TCOLE conference. At this time, we're winding down one fiscal year and spinning up the next. There's quite a bit of work involved with that. But for this fiscal year, we'll finish the year in the black, not having any liabilities that we cannot pay. And we have requested from the Office of the Governor and the Legislative Budget Board that some current funding be allocated for our IT needs going forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So are we talking about changing strategies with that request? Is that what the request was, to move it within strategy?
We have been very conservative with our spending this year. We have had trouble hiring people, and we haven't done as much travel as we could. So instead of just spending that on random things, we have a little more extra money in all 5 strategies, and we have this big need in IT. So our hope with this request is we're able to meet the need with some of those surplus budget items that we have. It would be all 5 items to directly answer your question.
And the timing's good because it is moving from one year, the first year of the biennium, to the second, which allows you to do that with the amount that we're talking about. With their permission, we'll be able to do that. If it were in the second year of the biennium, that wouldn't be possible. But with the timing of it, we will be able to do that. And if we can do that, it's going to give us some real breathing room in the IT section to move forward with some of the things we need to do there.
Do we have capital room left in the IT section to handle all that? Capital authority on that?
That was part of our request to increase that capital level. We do not.
So, all right. Based on the forecast and everything else, how much do you anticipate to you be forward?
Depending on how much, if this request is met, the total requested excess is about 400,000. So whatever we could reasonably and efficiently spend in August would not be UB, but the balance would.
The balance?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, I think it's important to, the cap space is always an issue, right? And so, you know, cap space authority for next biennium is going on now. But the problem with that is if you overestimate, then you can't move it anywhere, like it becomes locked in. So it's a very difficult balance in state government to make that work. So you got this. Thank you guys so much for the work.
Good staff.
We are going to take a 10-minute break. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, thank you. Do we have a motion on agenda item number 3?
I'll make a motion to accept the reports as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So we will now take a 10-minute break. We are going to come back from our long 10-minute break here. And we are going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is discuss and take action to readopt Title 37 Texas Administrative Code Chapters 211 through 229 pursuant to the TCOLE Rule Review Plan. Mr. Beecham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, as you well recall, over the past, roughly the last year, we've done a series of rule amendments and changes according to our rule review plan that was set for fiscal year 2022. You finalized that last set of amendments at the last couple previous meetings. And what the agenda item this morning before you does is simply formalizes and finalizes this sequence of the rule review process for this fiscal year. And of course, after and in response to the next legislative session, any appropriate changes will be made. We'll begin the whole thing again. But again, what this agenda item is simply formalizing and finalizing the process which staff and you as commissioners have, the rules that you've adopted, amended, in some cases we've repealed over the course of the last year. If you make the motion and adopt this readoption, and what this will do is go to the Texas Register and indicate, and again, in accordance with the Rules Review Plan, that the Commission has reviewed Chapters 211 through 229, and we will do so again at the next opportunity. If you have any questions, I would love to take them.
So you need a motion to post in the register?
You need a motion to readopt, yes, to formally readopt all the rules as they are, and it's correct. You do need a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to readopt Title 37 Texas Administrative Code Chapters 211 through 229 pursuant to the TCOLE Rule Review Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So we'll now move to agenda item number 6. And I want to recognize fellow Commissioner Ron Hood, who graciously agreed to chair the subcommittee to take a look at the proposed legislative budget and exceptional items. And he's been working really closely with, or he and his committee have been working really closely with Brian Roth. So I will turn it over to you, sir.
Commissioners, the exceptional item committee met on 4 separate occasions for approximately an hour, maybe a little bit longer on each meeting. Great conversation I want to take the opportunity to thank my fellow commissioners for their assistance and staff. Mr. Vickers, you're absolutely correct. They're outstanding. They're exceptional. Could not have done this without their help. In the course of reviewing these items, we identified 6 items that we would like the commission to accept, review and accept. It's the IT resources, targeted raises for all TCOLE employees, the school marshal program, additional staff personnel for that position, support staff, rent adjustments, and equipment, fleet vehicles for our officers, our sworn officers out on the road. And in reviewing this and discussing this with staff and with the commissioners, it was a eye-opening to realize the salary that we were paying our sworn personnel, how far they are behind in other state employees who's doing pretty much the same work. So our recommendation is that the sworn personnel be brought up to the Schedule C schedule for state employees, not to include the retirement portion of the Schedule C, but to bring them up, and that would be roughly around $30,000 increase per employee. That's for the sworn law enforcement side. For the non-sworn side, we're also requesting salary increases for all employees within the state. And again, that's going to bring them up to their current duties that they're doing for the commission. I'm going to let Ms. Jessica here speak to you about the IT resources. But before she does that, we also discussed the vehicle fleet. We had concerns with these officers utilizing their personal vehicles, going out, doing the commission's job, and then running up on a situation where they needed equipment. And in some cases, they do not have the basic equipment for doing that type of stop, i.e. emergency lights, just to let people know that they are, there's a police officer on scene. And so we're asking for equipment and the equipment to outfit those vehicles, the vehicles and the equipment. Okay, now.
Our information resources exceptional item covers 2 areas. The first area being secure IT service delivery. This encompasses the recommendations made by the Department of Information Resources, which occurred during our purchase of TCLEDs. This is funding to cover our move to the DIR private cloud, which is an ongoing annual expense that exceeds our current budget. The second component of our IT exceptional items is for advanced data management and strategic digital transformation, which includes remediation of our current EIR accessibility on our main website. This was a finding from our self-assessment that we do every 2 years through the Department of Information Resources. It also covers our ability to look at our data and provide our data more openly to the people of Texas through our website. And so with this is also an improvement to our TCOLE website, our main site. Would you like me to expand any further?
I'm sorry.
Would you like me to expand any further?
Yes, please, because a lot of this is foreign to me, and I'm sure it's going to be foreign, some of the terminology, so yes.
So included in these exceptional items are a couple of full-time positions, one being a dedicated cybersecurity officer to go along with our secure IT service delivery goal. We currently have on the books a security officer, but it is not his sole role. And with a dedicated cybersecurity officer, we can focus on oversight and governance of security, as well as making sure that we are developing new platforms that are secure from the beginning. And the Advanced Data Management and Strategic Digital Transformation initiative includes a data officer, which is in line with legislation from past sessions that are pushing larger agencies to assign a data officer role.
And Madam Chair, I think the important part on that is, you know, when we talk about the secure of the data that we have, all these things that are being done now are additional duties taken on by staff in addition to the other things that they have. And so, you know, we could not survive a breach of all law enforcement officers' personal information. You know, that would not be look well upon the commission. So these things are very important. And I also want to point out for everybody that's either listening or whatever that, you know, this is formalizing the process to ask the legislature for this amount of information, or excuse me, this amount in all of these items. It would still need to go through the formal legislative process and pass and actually be put into House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1 and funded for these things to go through. So this is just our formal adoption of that.
But I would think that we would have a lot of support from constituents, whether they be management groups or labor groups, to ensure that we do keep their information secure.
Yes. I believe we also had discussions about additional staff for TCOLE, and that's included in this report. If, Brian, if you would, the overall cost for the exceptional items, additional costs, could you give us an idea what that is?
It's about 10.7 million for both years total.
For the total 6 items?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the exceptional items as presented and send them to the Legislative Budget Board for consideration.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So we will move to agenda item number 7, and Mr. Winter from the Office of Attorney General is not able to be with us this morning, but Mr. Beecham, I believe you are going to
You just got
lead us
me
through
this morning instead of Mr. Ray. It's been a while since I've done this, but fortunately for everyone, this one is a short one. We have one item for your consideration this morning, Commissioners, on the disciplinary action summary, one that requires your action. You'll see it's a default revocation order. In the case of Joshua L. Black, Mr. Black was convicted or placed on community supervision for the criminal offense of official oppression, a Class A misdemeanor. The executive director determined that this particular offense directly related to the duties and responsibilities of Mr. Black's office. As a result, he filed a revocation petition against Mr. Black. Mr. Black failed to respond to the petition. As a result, we recommend, staff recommends, and executive director recommends that you enter an order of revocation on the license of Joshua L. Black.
Madam Chair? I make a motion that we accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director and enter a final, a default final order to revoke the license of Joshua Black.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Commissioners, you'll see the rest on the agenda items under the for information only subheading. You see the list of permanent surrenders. You'll see the list for reprimands for administrative violations, the list of licensees reprimanded for failing to complete legislative required continuing education, and a lengthier list of suspensions for licensees who failed to complete legislative required continuing education. And that concludes the list of any and all disciplinary actions for your consideration. No further action is taken, obviously, on the for information only items.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 8, which is discuss and take action on the progress of the strategic plan. As we do in each of our commissioner workshop meetings, I think many of the agenda items that we speak about are tied directly back to the strategic plan, so it's part of the discussion throughout that session. I don't believe that we have any new information coming forward, hence I don't see a need for any motions. Any other comments from my colleagues? Okay, so we will move to agenda item number 9, which is discuss and take action on legislative items to include exceptional items and performance measures, data information by TCOLE staff, and updates from TCOLE divisions if necessary. Again, this was an agenda item yesterday during our workshop, and we had the opportunity to have great discussion with staff on many of the projects that they are working on, and with the understanding that as we get past the exceptional items project and the executive director search project, that we'll continue to have additional conversations with staff on what information we're looking for, and as my colleague said, Commissioner Burris, we don't know what we don't know, so we'll continue to explore that and move forward with staff. So again, I don't know that we have any action to take. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item number 10, which is discuss and take action on the process, procedure, and qualifications related to the selection of the next executive director. And I want to recognize Commissioner Atkins, who graciously agreed to chair that subcommittee, and I will turn it over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have been working on getting the posting for the executive director, and we had probably, 3 Zoom meetings, something like that, and finally have it finalized, and everybody is on board with what we have, and so there will be an actual posting of the job, qualifications, minimum qualifications, etc. And then there's also going to be a link that the applicant will be required to go to and acknowledge that they've read all of the additional duties and responsibilities for the executive director, and before their application would even be accepted. So that is part of the application process.
So the governor's office has asked to review the job description before it is posted. So keeping that in mind, do we have any further discussion or comments before I ask for a motion?
Sorry. It's my announcement. I just wanted to remind the commission, although we were only missing Jason Hester yesterday, what we discussed was, since we do need to present this to the governor's office for comment, if there were any substantive changes, then obviously we need to get back together and review them. We talked about a couple different ways we might formulate a motion here today, instead of just saying, well, we accept this and present it, knowing that that's a possibility, either authorizing the presiding officer alone or the committee, after reviewing whatever changes may come, authorizing the committee then through the presiding officer to go ahead and accept those changes without having to come back. So kind of a contingency motion.
So do we have a motion?
And what does it say?
I wasn't gonna say exactly what you just said, but I would, this is, wait for feedback. Nope. I would say have a conditional motion based on any substantive changes that come back from the governor's office. If there are any, then that would be one question that you would have to, we'd have to address now. Does it come back through you or the subcommittee? And it sounds like the subcommittee is what this will be rerouted back to in the event of any substantive changes. And the subcommittee would have the authority to make those changes, and then staff would get the okay to post the posting.
Yes. The bottom line is that we're hoping for prompt feedback.
Sure.
Versus having to wait to October to come back together again and make a posting. So I think that's the.
Now, here's one thought, is that you can approve the qualifications, and then on the procedurally, do as we discussed. Just since it's been discussed in an open meeting, if you don't want to put that into a motion, you don't necessarily have to. I'm sitting here thinking about it. Approve the current requirements in substance, send it off for the governor's office for approval. If it comes back with any changes, if they're substantive, have the subcommittee determine, or just have it come back to the subcommittee, period. And then once those changes have been made, then it can be posted. Because I'm thinking through this, if there are any changes that come back from the governor's office, they will be followed more than likely. So I don't think there's going to be another draft sent back to the governor's office with, a negotiated change to their language. So that would be my thought on that. So
And we could also review it, that if it became more complicated, we could always come back together again in
That's
October.
correct, but chances are there'll be
won't.
one round of changes, and then the subcommittee approves for changes. The subcommittee will then approve it with changes, send to staff for posting.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the job description posting as presented, and if any substantive changes are made by the governor's office, then the committee for hiring the executive director shall meet and discuss.
Incorporate the changes?
And incorporate any changes. Right. And that's the whole thing.
And then it'll be posted.
You gotta second it, Bob.
Pardon?
Mario already seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, like the presiding officer stated, if there's something really huge and the committee's like, no, this is something really big, which is not really likely. But if it were to happen, then if we need to call a special meeting or meet in October, we'll do that.
We will move to agenda item number 11, which is to receive public comment on any topic. Would anyone like to speak? I don't see anyone traveling to the front in the microphone, so we will move on to agenda item 12, which is executive session. We will not be going into executive session today. Agenda item number 12 is coming back from executive session, so that is a moot point. And now we come to the end of our meeting. I personally wanted to recognize two folks. One is our colleague Tim Whitaker. This will be his last meeting as commissioner, so I want to thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
And wish you the very best, and we will not hesitate to take advantage of your very kind and gracious offer to assist TCOLE in the future, and I have no doubt we will be calling upon you, so I will allow my other commissioners to please make any comments that they would like to Tim.
So, we have lots, but Tim, man, we love you. We're gonna miss you. I appreciate your passion, to help better our profession and your passion in helping the mental health of our officers. It is so key and so important, and you do phenomenal, phenomenal work for that. We love you and thank you for everything that you've done, and you're always welcome.
Thank you. Amen. Thank you for your service, Tim. Thank you for all your great wisdom and your experience, and it's invaluable. And personally, I thank you for what you have brought to this state, this commission, and the atmosphere of law enforcement.
Thank you very much. You quieted Patricia. I don't know how y'all done that.
Well, I can't let it go by without saying something. Jana's turned on her mic.
I was just gonna tell you, yes, I'm gonna miss you, Tim, and, hey, I get to move over.
Moving on up.
And two, we have some positions at TCOLE if you wanna.
Oh, not yet.
Get a second job, so.
I'll wait for the pay raise.
Yeah. But I will miss you. One of my mentors getting on here and kind of guiding me through on how to be a commissioner, so
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Well, I've got to say something for sure. Not to disparage anyone on the commission, but for me, Tim, you've had so much great insight. You have been such a strong advocate and clear about your position on so many issues, and you've been my greatest ally in championing mental health for our officers. And I felt really alone for many years trying to get that message across, and there's definitely strength in numbers, and your position with HPD definitely brought a lot of credibility to the issue. So I appreciate all the discussions we've had, and we don't always agree. We do have a fair amount of disagreements on how we come to certain positions, but more times than not, by far, we end up the same place, and we're able to see this different perspective and really gain greater knowledge. And so I really appreciate your work. I know the job is challenging to come here for everyone, to go around the state and dedicate the time, but you always dedicated the time to not only fulfilling your duties here at meetings, but above and beyond that. So I'm going to miss you a lot. I'm going to miss having you as my seatmate here, although I get Jana now, so you won't have to be between us.
I've kept you calm.
You've kept us calm, but a big loss for the commission, and I do want to recognize that I think you are a great loss to our group, and it's through no fault of Tim's. He did not do anything wrong. He's not getting off the commission for any kind of a bad reason, but it's just we turn over time, and it won't be long before I'm gone, Jason, and the rest of us. So it's your turn to cycle off, but we hope we keep seeing you.
And thank you all. Thank you, TCOLE staff. I've made some great friends up here, and you'll see me again. I might show up in Corpus Christi if Lamu will get me a room. But thank you all.
We might can work something out. So, didn't know if you had anything to say, sir.
I do. First off, thank you for your friendship. It took us a long time to get you here, because you kept coming to meetings. I could tell how much you cared about this agency and about law enforcement in Texas, because you were showing up long before you were a commissioner, and I got to know you there, and recognized your quality and your passion. And so I was very, very pleased when they finally moved you into that role and you could do it officially and be there to help. You've been a tremendous asset to the commission and to this agency and to law enforcement in Texas. And I hate to see you go. For the commission's sake, I really hate to see you go. But as Patricia said, all things end, and sometimes that's just the way it works. And but thank you again for what you've done here, and most of all, thank you for your friendship.
And I think, as everyone knows, this is Kim's last meeting. And we want to thank you, sir, for your service, not just to TCOLE, but you've been in law enforcement a long time. So we appreciate your service in Abilene, which is not too far from here. I know they appreciate it very much. And I know that my fellow commissioners would like to take the opportunity to thank you and recognize you for your service.
I'll start. We're going to miss you. I'll just tell you straight up front, we're going to miss you. It's amazing when I talk to people about TCOLE who know you and what you stand for. And the one word that I always hear when I'm talking to these individuals is, what a gentleman. And how much he cares about law enforcement in the state of Texas. And it's true, because I've seen it. I've witnessed it here. And I know how much you care. And I know this is difficult, but I also know that you've got another chapter in your life, and it's going to be an exciting chapter. And I know you're somewhat looking forward to it. I just wish you the best, you and your family, the very, very best. Spoil those grandkids. I mean, that's what we do at this stage. Thank you for your time in law enforcement and your service. It's impressive. Thank you.
Thank you for forever the gentleman, forever the West Texas roots that you brought to the commission. You left your mark here, and the next chapter starts for you. Do all the things, right? Enjoy the family, enjoy those things because you've earned them, and you've done a phenomenal job. Going to miss our lunches, but you can still call me and we'll go get some barbecue and catch up and see how things are going. But thank you for what you've done, for the commission and for the profession. Greatly appreciated.
Kim, I personally thank you. Every time I've called you, I got the greatest service I could ask for. Your staff, I think you've organized an exceptional staff, and I think that reflects upon your leadership and guidance. And thank you for your service to our state. There's not a lot of people this day and time that is stepping forward trying to serve their communities, their state, and I hope more will come in the future. But you and your tenure of 43 years in law enforcement is remarkable. You know, there's a lot of people who don't even live that long, and but that is very admirable, and I certainly admire you, and thank you for your help in everything that we've done, and your guidance in this commission. It's TCOLE, and put it where it is today. I think it's evolved into I think it's a great organization, great agency, and thank you, and I salute you for 43 years in law enforcement. Thank you.
Kim, I'll reiterate what you just told me. Thank you for your career in law enforcement, what you do for police officers in the state. Thank you for what you've done for TCOLE, for what you've done for the Houston Police Department, getting us out of trouble. Also, in Houston, when an officer retires, we tell them to go break the pension system. I hope you live a very long time, yes, and I hope you break 2 pension systems.
say much that I haven't already said in a couple other farewells. You know my feelings about how I feel about you, and to echo Commissioner Griffiths, I think it says a lot about you as a leader to assemble the team that you've assembled, and that's a very challenging skill for leaders. We all like to think we can attract great people and retain them, and that's not necessarily true, but you've proven that over your tenure here, and I think that says a lot about you. And I know you've had a lot of tears from staff related to your departure, and it says a lot. But you need to go live your life and have fun and do other things and take on new challenges, and I'm all about that. So I'll be excited to hear about all the ways you're going to stay, I think, perhaps tangentially related to the field, but also your adventures. So I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to thank you for welcoming me as I come into this commission, and through this learning process, I also learned what challenges you had to accept and how you had to reorganize and deal with departures. And I also believe that the level of professionalism that our group has today is because of your leadership. I think you're leaving some very great directors that are going to be a reflection of you as the years go on. And during this legislative session, I think we're going to do very well because you prepared us to be there. So thank you, and I know that all of South Texas also wants to thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Speaking of tears.
Yeah. Jan and I go back a long way. Long way. Guys, thank you for your commitment to this agency and to law enforcement in Texas. It's been amazing working with you. I love this agency. And I wasn't going to do that. Thank you. I love this agency.
I didn't want to speak.
Yeah, I know. I love this agency, and I believe in law enforcement, and I believe in Texas law enforcement and what we can do. I'm going to ask you, I love my staff. We do have the most amazing staff. I want to ask you to take care of them with me leaving, because they are special. So, thank you.
Gift for you.
Thank you.
To recognize you for your service.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. No, hold on to it. That is gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Take a group photo.
Yeah.
Read it,
I don't want to fall out. Yeah, I don't want to fall out.
I'm glad you put the first fingerprints on it.
I put the first fingerprints on it. It's long, but it's very pretty, and thank you very much. It means a great deal. Thank you.
Maybe John should take it.
Yeah.
Wow. Short people know.
heard how much we're gonna miss you, how much we appreciate you, and how much we wish you for the best.
Very much. I have. Thank you. I don't want to live here long. All right.
Run away.
I'm running away.
Run away.
And we will move to agenda item number 14. Do we have a motion?
I've moved to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.